here back in the LCS, and I'm here with Promiscu. How are you feeling today after this victory?
Right now I'm feeling great. Like, this win meant a lot to us, and it was a clean win as well, which just helps, you know, so I feel great.
You made crazy engages with Roccat. Who was leading in those moments? Who was shot calling?
I think I'm like the main shot caller when it comes to like engaging, especially when I'm playing like Roccat or Alistar, which is my kind of signature champion. I'm really comfortable on like just engaging and being the first one to go. So that's basically just me shot calling, you know.
We know that the playoff race is pretty tight right now. Do you feel like there's some pressure affecting you?
I would say it's not pressure. I'm honestly just excited. Like, I was really excited coming into this week because it was so close, and like we had like really good schedule as well. So I wouldn't say I had pressure. It was more like just straight up excitement and like hype.
And tomorrow you will have to face Roccat in your last game of the split for the moment. How will you prepare for this, and what are your strengths coming into this matchup?
I think we're gonna... I mean, I can't talk too much how we will prepare for it. We had a very busy week without scrimming a single game. So it was a really like special week for us. We've just been playing solo queue so I think we're just gonna have to go and ride this wave we just did today and try to play as clean as we did today.
Okay, so no training the whole week, and I want to say that you were player of the game for today. How are you feeling about it?
Expected.
Expected? Yeah. Well, congratulations for this game,
thank you.
And good luck for tomorrow. And now back to Shox and the guys at the desk.
Merci beaucoup, Laure. Well then, Promiscu, not nervous, just excited, didn't practice, expected player of the game, easy peasy, lemon squeezy for H2K. I still can't believe how clean that victory was over Schalke, let me put it that way.
It was very good. I know I can already hear Deficio's ego from over here, but we have to give credit. That was an excellent game for H2K, and if they can just get themselves one more win, their playoff chances look that much healthier.
And that also makes this match even more important, and the one for tomorrow, because Roccat is up versus Misfits, and for Roccat, it's simple. If they want to get to playoffs, they just have to win their next two games versus Misfits and versus H2K. That all of a sudden looks a lot more difficult to me, seeing how H2K played. But let's focus in on Roccat. They haven't made playoffs since summer 2015, so the fact that they're even in contention to me is kind of an upset to start with, and really, really impressive from that lineup.
The thing is for Roccat is they've taken these various teams of kind of upstarts, and multiple seasons we've seen them have these late sort of season resurgence, but often it's very rarely been in their control, where we saw them have that amazing run back in spring, and then unfortunately, because it wasn't in their control, they couldn't secure that spot in playoffs. But now it is. Everything is in their power. They can get themselves into playoffs.
Well, 250 EU LCS games so far, 9 splits, but only 3 playoffs. So the big question is, will Freddy122 and the squad be able to make it with the members that they have? Do you have faith in it?
I do, because I think over the whole course of the split, I think they have shown like great progress in terms of like actually understanding their issues, and the coaching that Freddy actually brought to the team kind of shows in the games. They've always been composed, and they've always been controlled. And I think that's something that I haven't seen out of Roccat since basically like the late season resurgence of last year, where they actually came in and actually controlled the pace for themselves again. But this time around, they actually do it the whole split, and I think that's really interesting to see.
So they have to beat Misfits and H2K. They have to get a 2-0 to make it into playoffs. Which player is going to make the difference here?
For me, I'm looking at Memento. I know that both Amazing and I were talking a lot about his impact, especially when you look in how much he influences the success of the bottom lane as well. Last week, when Fnatic successfully shut down that bottom lane, this team kind of fell apart. But if those two in conjunction can get rolling, this Roccat becomes a very scary force.
We'll see what they do, and if they manage to get to playoffs, they need to win this game. When I look at Roccat, I feel like they've exceeded our expectations, because our expectations were honestly not very high. But when I look at the side of Misfits, I am a bit disappointed in the way they've played this split. Can we all agree that they have fallen under our expectations coming into this?
Way below. I honestly felt like they're going to be a top 3, top 4 team in EU, and I think that's where most people's expectations were at. And I think they've just put themselves on a timer every time they've been playing, and I think they basically try to emulate what they've shown at Worlds, where they had early game cons, where they had early game aggression. But if you have different players, the meta changes. You can't do the same thing over and over again.
But do you think that what the vision we've had of Misfits of last year, should we just completely forget about that? Should we, even though some of the members are the same and the coach is the same, look at them from a different standpoint? The lineup is just completely different and needs to play differently.
I think you kind of have to, because last year, when the team was struggling, because this is the 3rd time we've now seen it, where Misfits kind of start off strong, they have a bit of a mid-season slump, they pick things up towards the end, and then playoffs they look pretty good. But they always last year had Power of Evil as kind of the solid, consistent carry, and I feel like we've been saying this week on week week on week. But when the rest of the team was faltering, he was the guy that stepped up. But now it's a different team. Now you're kind of looking in the eyes of Hansama, Alfaro to be the individual carries that step up. And to be honest, they have not been doing so. Last week, Hansama had one of his worst performances. They're putting Alfaro on things like Maokai to prevent him from being that big carry. And Senkux is not living up to the same kind of carry power that Power of Evil was in the past. So for me, I'm a little more concerned for Misfits than I have been over the course of last year.
When we look at their development and compare it to some of the development of the other squads, to me, from a lot of teams, they have caught up near the end of the split. I think of Vitality, who did rebound. I think of Splice, the team that has really have come into their own as of now. And Misfits went through the opposite growth. Amazing. Why do you think that is?
I don't actually know. Like, it's really hard to say from the outside, but I do think it's still like this, almost like ignorance towards what's actually good, and they're so caught up into what they want to do that they don't really accept that, hey, we may actually have to we may not be able to replicate whatever we did beforehand because it's just not working for us with this roster, especially with Senkux still not really fitting in, where he's still not like really part of the team yet.
And I must say that in terms of like some of their issues, I agree that they're a little stubborn, but also the fact that we're consistently seeing these mid-game issues arise where it just seems to come from a variety of different places. Some weeks it's from individuals messing up. I can forgive that. Sometimes people have bad weeks, sometimes people make mistakes, but also just some of the decision-making. Last week in their game versus Splice, it felt like that the game plan from many analysts' perspective and from many pros' perspective was clear and understandable, yet Misfits just completely dropped the ball. They seem to take odd engages, and you wonder why are they trying to start these fights. And it's just, I mean, we harp on a lot about Misfits, but it's because the expectations were so high. Right now, they're not living up to these expectations, and you can't help but be critical.
And you can't help but want to see them get back on it, and a lot of their teams have got it together for the rest of the split. This is week 9. This is if they want to get to playoffs, they can still perfectly do it. They need to win their 2 games, and then we've seen a turnaround for Misfits also last split. In playoffs, they were much stronger than they were before, but they do have to take that step there.
And this is why this game was one of my must-watches, because you look at the progression and the development of Misfits, and you compare it across to Roccat, who as a team, in my opinion, have shown signs of growth. Their preparation seems to be good. Their mid-game seems to be one of their strongest points, and I feel like we are in for what should be a very close game.
Now, just waiting for a second to get the players ready on stage, so I'm going to ask for your final predictions. Roccat or Misfits?
I did predict Roccat, and I'm going to stay true to it because I do think that they are right now the better team.
I predicted Misfits, and I'm going to stick with it. I feel like that they're going to shore up and utilize some of the early game strengths, and I think they're going to look to camp that bottom lane.
I also voted for Roccat. I even gave them a 2-0 week. We'll see what happens. Let's see if Misfits can turn it around in the final week.
Thank you very much, Shox. Wow, it sounds like there is a lot of hype on Roccat right now.
Except for Vetty, the one guy who predicted Roccat to make playoffs.
You know, well, what are you going to do, right? I think the thing with Roccat is what Vettius was saying earlier, that they've never really been in control of their own destiny when it comes to making playoffs. It's always been a miracle run for these guys, and oftentimes it stops short because they haven't been able to do it since 2015. That was back when Jankos was on the lineup.
Yeah, and Nuke Dog as well in the mid lane. So completely different times from Roccat. But this split, and the same thing happens for Misfits, is we watch one game, and we're like, oh, whoa, they look really good. That was a sick performance from that player. Really good setup around Baron from that team as well. And then the next game, just when we're getting excited, it just falls apart. Like, it is, of course, the nature of best of one, but it's definitely been something that's happened a lot for Misfits and Roccat. Just this very inconsistent play on stage, where they can look so good one day and so bad the next day.
And I think what's important about that is while it can happen to anybody, it seems to happen consistently to Misfits. So you have this strange scenario where they're just dropping one game randomly, and it's against teams that are way further down in the standings too. Well, they're right in the middle with Roccat, and whoever walks away with this one is going to be that much better in the playoff race. Remember, every game counts, and we're getting into picks and bans for Misfits and Roccat.
And every game counts for more when, as you guys can see at the top of your screen, both teams have 7 wins and 9 losses. So they are tied with each other for 5th place at the moment. Getting a win here is so big, knocking yourself further up and really push someone down who's right next to you in the standings. We have a Caitlyn ban, thank you very much, coming in from Misfits. Galio, despite the nerf to his Q on this patch, still getting banned away by Roccat. I want to see how many teams still want to play Galio. I still think he should be good, but I think some of the nerfs that happened to him could definitely hurt him quite a bit.
Seems like the game plan for Roccat is to try and pinch as much of the pool as they can in the mid up against Senkux, who's, as they've alluded to, already had some struggles just trying to find his footing here on this team. Now Olaf is also banned away. That's something Maxlor had a pretty solid early game on the last time we saw them play, but it just didn't translate into results.
Oh, so we have Xayah open for the Xayah Rakan combination. Jungle-wise as well, we do have Skarner and Kha'Zix as some of the very high picks, and Sejuani, which is still probably going to get played quite a lot. But I think if you are Misfits, you have one of the best Rakan players in Europe. You have a great Xayah player in Hansama. I think going Xayah first pick is fine for them, also to get a super strong lane to play around. But they value the Kha'Zix. So I think the reason they're doing this is because Memento, Vedius was actually kind of showing this to me yesterday. Memento, when they play Sejuani, oh my god, it is not great. The team has lost so many games on that pick. He barely does anything with it. So by taking away Kha'Zix, which is actually one of the best Memento picks, they kind of deny him a little bit extra, because he normally doesn't want to go for the Sejuani, at least not if Roccat wants to win.
Of course, it also fits Maxlor's preferred style to try and get onto those side lanes early and often. We'll see if he's able to make it happen. For Rockat's side, they lock in the Tahm Kench. She could pair that up nicely with the hyper carry. That's something that Hikyu's had success on this split.
Yeah, and we see this a lot, especially when Xayah Rakan are both open. They don't go for that one. They take the Tahm Kench instead as one of the answers they can use against that lane. And then Tahm Kench just offers so much later in the game due to his ulti to go from mid to the other lanes. And then, of course, the fact he can save someone who might get assassinated by a Kha'Zix. But Tahm Kench, to me, has always been slightly overrated, just because he's so limited. If he's not able to execute in like a split push comp where you can actually use ulti to side lanes.
I have never heard you talk nicely about Tahm Kench. You think he's boring, you think he's overrated. What have you got against the Catfish?
I just think he's anti-fun to watch.
I mean, I won't completely disagree with you on that, but you can pull some sick combos. I like
That's
the Jinx
true.
trap,
Yeah.
Eat somebody, spit him on there.
But here's the thing, if you can't use ulti aggressively, so again, like go from mid to side lanes or lane swap with it, then he's just a pure defensive support.
Well, I would say hate the player, not the champion. Like, if people aren't utilizing his kit, then that's their fault.
Yeah, sometimes they just pick him just to be defensive.
That's fair. That's fair.
But this is a Roccat draft where there's a lot of focus on scaling. Reminder on 8.5, the patch we're playing on, Azir's early game took another nerf. So he's not as strong early as we've seen a few patches ago. I don't think Senkux is going to struggle necessarily in that early laning phase. And it's a lot of scaling on Rockat's side. It's that famous Sejuani for Memento where he's only won one game all split long.
He's played it 6 times too. That's definitely quite a feat. We'll see if he's able to turn that into 2. And in the second phase of bans, Gangplank was taken off the table, but Misfits are focusing on those hyper carries since Kog'Maw now removed. I wonder what else they'll ban if they keep throwing them the way of Hiku. Cassiopeia also off the table.
EQ, of course, has really valued the Caitlyn pick, which was the first ban in this draft. It's actually been far and away his best champion. Freeze also highlighted this last week, where he's basically saying, just ban Caitlyn against EQ, and he kind of runs out of champions he can carry on. I want to see if he actually wants to play another hyper carry. Something like a Jinx.
I really want to see the Jinx, man. After the mini Truepax game last week.
I mean, they're already committed to the late game, so it is an option for them, even though it's risky in the early game. It is something where you might fully commit to it. DQ's Ezreal, safe choice. Hard for him to be a carry on it, though.
Okay, so where you were just pretty much putting it all on Blanc's shoulders, unless Prophet goes for like a hard carry top?
I mean, most players play tank top laners right now. Prophet does have counter picks, so he could go for a carry, but yeah, I'm looking a lot of Blanc on this Azir as the main carry for Roccat in this game.
All right, well, we could be going to the late game when it comes to Roccat, but for Misfits, they don't want to let it get that far. We already see the power couple, Xayah Rakan, and we see the Taliyah for Senkux. So this finally comes out, and this is something that is squarely inside the wheelhouse of the Misfits mid laner.
He's very good at playing these different roaming mid laners. Push, roam, sync up with your side lanes. Camille is actually left open in this draft. So often banned away or early picked. That's an absolutely insane, pick composition from Misfits. Like, look at the amount of pick potential. Insane engage from Rakan, ulti from Taliyah to go to side lanes, best 1v1 like assassin jungler and Kha'Zix, and then Camille ult to lock someone in place. Crazy pick comp. Of course, very good team fight from Roccat to kind of try and counter it. Let's see what Prophet gets to play top against Camille. Might just be another tank, which is what he's played a lot lately. It is full-on team fight from Rockat's side.
Okay, so last second swaps up to the Shen. This is going to give them a little bit more mobility around that map. I mean, what a front line we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a big one.
But if Blanc dies, then Roccat doesn't do damage.
That's kind of going to be a problem for them, but of course with triple tank, one of them being a Tahm Kench, hopefully you can make sure your mid laner.
I feel like if your mid laner dies with this composition, you've done something wrong.
Also, Tahm Kench ulti plus Shen ult to try and protect against this very mobile pick comp we just talked about. Kha'Zix can move through brushes and quickly appear in a side lane. Talia ult, the same thing. So they're trying to use defensive ultis from Shen and Tahm Kench to prevent the team from just getting picked off left and right. Very, very different comps. Roccat trying to find some answers to all the engage on the side of Misfits and all the pick potential. And Misfits playing a comp where, once again, the execution is not easy, and they have failed multiple times this split at executing these kind of compositions.
Now the only question that remains as the coaches walk off stage, is this where Misfits turn that around? Is this where they find their consistency? They're on the edge of falling out of playoffs for a team that made it as far as they did in Worlds last year, taking SKT all the way to 5 games. You have got to step it up if you want to even have a shot at making international competition happen again.
Very clearly, Misfits and SKT hurt each other so much that both teams have now been struggling.
Apparently, that's how that works.
Yes, they took each other's powers and destroyed everything.
Well, let's not talk about the past, Officio. Right here, right now, we are looking to see if Misfits can find their form, find their consistency.
You know what? We're also
Shut
looking
down Roccat.
at Roccat and see if they can make it into playoff for the first time since 2015. Surprise some people with this roster here.
I mean, this is huge for these guys. Roccat as an organization has always been willing to take risks and almost gambles, if you will, on players that just aren't super well known or haven't really had much of a chance to play. Like, before this split, you look at the likes of Hikyu or even to some degree Memento, and you're like, who are these guys? Norskeren, where does he come from? And now they're household names.
Definitely knew the names, but they weren't my first choices if I had to draft a lineup. That's for sure.
I mean, if you have to go quite far down a list, I mean, that's the thing, though. They've always been willing to take these risks on players, and they have found a way to basically see them realize their potential.
That's why we always call Roccat a talent factory.
And they always surprise.
Because they find all these different players, they put them together, and they end up getting pretty decent results. This lineup here, just like a lot of the other teams down towards that middle/bottom part of the EU LCS, have been able to pick up enough wins to still fight for the playoff spot. Misfits is a team who struggled against teams like Roccat, teams like Giants, the teams that are just around them in the standings. So while Roccat are opting in for a bit of scaling on their side, and it's on Misfits to be proactive, well, I think it's almost a 50-50 on who wins this game, just because it's impossible to predict how they actually perform on stage on the day.
Is that what you're going to say if your prediction isn't true?
Oh yeah, I'm just
Of
gonna.
course, it's coin flip, right?
I'm just gonna blame the stage jitters.
Okay. Yeah, for Misfits, I mean, it's very emblematic of the struggle that they're faced with right now, because they do have that chip on their shoulder to succeed. They're expected to be a playoff team. But for Roccat, I mean, you just got to feel elation at this point. And for the fans that have been here watching Roccat day in and day out over the years, to be on the cusp of playoffs, that is an incredible feeling.
Yeah, and while Misfits as an organization, as you highlighted there, there's more pressure on them, I think at this point Roccat will be as disappointed if they don't make playoffs, because they've made it this far into the split. They've actually been close in a lot of games where they've just narrowly missed out because, a lost team fight or an individual mistake on their side. So I think at this point, because it's so close in the ULCS, everyone is going to be so mad if they don't make playoffs. They were so close.
Every game counts, Officio.
There we go. We're just going to overuse it in the first 2 games so the other casters can't use it.
Is that how that works?
It's smart.
I don't think we'll be done with it just yet. Do want to track how these early junglers go, though. You mentioned Memento really hasn't had a lot of success on the Sejuani.
It's just the thing about Roccat and the way they get ahead in games is it's Memento being active in the early game, typically on something where you can duel the enemy jungler and be a threat that way. And then it's Norskeren leaving his lane and kind of roaming around the map, teaming up with Memento, get someone like Blank or Prophet going. It was Prophet early in the split when he was playing a lot of split pushers. He's now mainly been on tanks, so that's to be more about Blank specifically. And without Memento and Norskeren being active, Roccat don't really get early leads. Blank doesn't win his lane on his own. Same thing can be said for Prophet now when he's on these different tanks. So they need that jungle support duo. And when teams are then actually pushing in the bottom lane, which we have seen like last week as one of the examples with Fnatic against Roccat, Norskeren and Hikyu are stuck under the turret, And then Roccat, they can't really make anything happen in the early game, and they just end up kind of falling behind and lose. It's something we've seen a few times already from them, and Syra Khan here, Misfits are trying to do exactly the same. Just push them under the turret, force Noscaron to never move.
Yeah, and this is the tough thing, especially for Memento to try and keep pace up against Maxlor, who is honestly a very, very different type of jungler. He's wanted to be this big carry player, and he's done it in the early game. The dude might actually be an early game god.
Yeah, he's, in my opinion, been the best early game jungler of the split. Now, because Misfits have had a really bad habit of playing really poorly around the mid-game team fights, then the early lead Maxlor tends to get just kind of falls apart. And suddenly, it doesn't look that great for anyone on Misfits' side, but the early game numbers are insane, like super high kill participation, great K plus A, so he's active, he's succeeding with it, and he's the main reason they get ahead early.
I mean, if you have like a 7-9 record after getting those types of numbers early, like that's when you're just like, team too heavy. I can't do it, guys. Maxlor's definitely having a hard time.
Done his job early game.
In the early game.
I do think in team fights, he's also been one of the problems. It's kind of been a team-wide thing, but he's not exactly played them perfectly on his side.
Yeah, and Misfits, this is why they have such kind of like a wonky record, right? Like they beat these top teams. They have a 2-0 against Fnatic, but it doesn't matter because Fnatic are locked in first.
It's actually sad that having a 2-0 against the #1 team effectively is useless now when it comes to head-to-heads.
We're back to those fun best-of-1 days too. There used to be something people would say about that, but I won't quote it here.
And also a reminder, last time they played Roccat, which was one of these losses against the bottom 5 teams, they got almost perfect gamed.
Oh, that's right,
they got one objective on their side. That was it. Roccat stomped it early on. Won't be the same in this game due to the draft, of course, being more late game focused on Rockat's side and very defensive. But destruction last time they played.
But let's talk about what they can definitely do different this time. We know that Senkux loves being on these like roam-happy mid laners. He's hit level 6, so he's going to have the Weaver's Wall available. Alphari can teleport in. The Camille damage early is going to be big, but of course it's going to be matched by what Prophet can do with Stand United. So where do Misfits look to strike first?
Go top, kill the Shen.
Gank the teleport, I like it.
Yeah, attack the global, don't go bot lane against what is going to be a stopwatch AD carry plus a Tahm Kench. It is a lot riskier unless you can actually force out the cooldown. So top lane tower dive is going to be more effective on their side. It might have to be a longer one because you got to wait for the Shen W to run out.
Oh, Fari does get a little too close and taunted up by Prophet, forces him to hookshot away. And they also had the pings immediately on Maxlor. They could see him coming.
I want to see if Roccat wants to lane swap, because one of the answers then if a team wants to push with Taliyah, then go top lane and just kill your top laner, is you just have the Tahm Kench and the Ezreal a bit late in the laning phase. Lane swap to top side with Tahm Kench ulti and try and push down the first turret of the game. Stop any sort of like roaming ganks happening from Senkux. It's a little bit too early for them now because they're only level 4 on Noscaron, so they have to wait for next back and just kind of hold on. Except they're going to get pushed in both side lanes. Actually, all 3 lanes in this case. They have the weaker 1v1 jungler on the side of Roccat. They have 3 lanes that will push against them. It should be enough freedom for Misfits to get an early lead. But at the moment, it's just based on farm and no kills yet.
Not too dissimilar from the last game we saw, of course. So very, very slight lead for Misfits thanks to that farm differential. Mostly in that bottom lane, a little bit up in the top as well. But Roccat don't seem to be too phased about getting pushed in. It's all about that late game. It's all about getting the Azir powerful.
They know. Keep stalling, defensive vision on top side to spot the roam from Senkux. Maxlor now gets spotted by this ward here, so they know he's top side, contesting the red buff. Mento is around, can try and steal it away from Maxlor.
Okay, let's see if he can get that steal away. Bringing friends, of course, in plain sight. Let's see if Memento wins that smite fight. He's going to be coming in, takes it away, and they want to take the fight instead. Ice pull on, flashing over for Senkux, and it looks like Roccat are the ones who want to take the fight. Senkux is isolated from the team. That's first blood.
So what happened right there was quite interesting. Maxlor expected to walk into that jungle unnoticed. After he placed that control ward in that little brush in the river, it didn't spot the ward just outside in time, so Maxlor actually suddenly was spotted. He walked in, Roccat reacted in time, instantly move up and match it with Shen ult and just get the kill. This could have been a very easy play. Maxlor was not spotted walking in, and Senkux roams up to top side. Roccat are not 100% sure if the jungle is in there. They don't know if Senkux is going for top lane tower dive, and they can't react as quickly, so he places the ward, spotted by this one. just outside the range, sees it now, of course, that it dies, but he has already spotted. It's very easy for Roccat to react a little bit faster than normal and be like, yeah, we're gonna go for this play.
Yeah, Maxler's just out of there. Forces Seconds to flash over. Memento brings in him, and this is that global composition. They're able to take the fight better. Okay, Emperor's Divide. Meanwhile, in the mid, they are looking for Senkooks. Memento and Blanc on top of him. Memento's going to take that one before the teleport completes.
Flash and cleansed used last time by Senkooks.
This is not good. 0-2 for the Misfits mid laner. Now, the kills might have gone the way of Rockat's jungler at this point, but Blanc is perfectly happy with this. He's able to keep up in farm. He's honestly a big win condition even when he's not the only carry on the team.
It's true.
Blanc is like the key player when Roccat wins games.
There's such a big difference between wins and losses when it comes to Blanc's performance, because often when Roccat win, it's because Blanc gets to farm in his lane, gets 2 items very quickly, becomes a strong team fighter, and deals a ton of damage for his team. Great. But typically when Blanc gets shut down, Roccat fall really far behind, and then they don't have enough damage, and they can't win late game fights, and then it all just kind of looks really bad. This game, he got 2 early assists. He's winning on CS. He's against a mid laner with no summoners. This is the perfect start for a Roccat team that tends to win games when the mid laner is doing well early.
Yep, now he's got the Nashor's Tooth. We're going to take a look at how that fight started as we got out of the last replay.
Well, he has no summoners. He thinks the enemy mid laner is back in base. And Memento is around and kills him.
Yep, and that minefield did absolutely nothing. So we're 10 minutes into this game. It's Roccat that find themselves ahead. 1,000 gold. The difference, 2 kills right now to offset the farm advantage that Misfits had gained.
But this is the Talia comp from Misfits' side that has been unsuccessful at playing the early game against the scaling comp. This is a nerfed early game Azir who is just free farming in his lane. The moment he gets towards the late game, he's just as strong as before, can easily carry games.
Yeah, it's bad for Misfits right now. They're gonna
really
need
bad
to find some early kills. Maxler's got to be a big part of that, but what can he do here? He can't exactly 1v1 Memento, who's throwing down wards in his own jungle.
Oh, Memento, he's strong in this game here.
Yeah, I talk about Sejuani not being very good for him. It looks like he's figured out his way around it.
For this game at least, after they surprised Misfits at the red buff and then return ganked the mid laner. Kind of hard to fully blame Senkooks for it, because it was very clearly the team call to go for red buff there. And then he just ends up being the target that gets jumped, and then of course when there's no flash after, easy to gank him. But another thing that's important to highlight is because Misfits have lost so many games against bottom teams, their head-to-head against them is horrible. If they lose to Roccat, they're going to be 0-2 against them. And seeing as we most likely will have some sort of tie-break set up between all these bottom teams, because Misfits will be 0-2 against so many of them, they're going to lose out on that potential tiebreaker and just get knocked out without even getting to play a game.
Yeah, that's really what the danger is right now for this team, and you do not want to be in that position where you're basically dependent on some of the teams that are just below you to really lose. You don't control your own destiny, and here's what you were talking about. They don't have a winning record against any of these teams. Now, Schalke obviously lost earlier today. Spoiler if you're just tuning in.
Oh, so they can get a tiebreak against Schalke for 7th place. That's going to be great.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's okay. That's not what you want, though.
It's definitely not what you want.
No, especially not if you're Misfits. With everybody so close right now, 7-9, 7-9 between Misfits and Roccat. I mean, this is frustrating right now, especially if you're Senkooks, because as you mentioned, it wasn't entirely his fault, but he hasn't really been able to pull off those side lane plays. He only roamed once, and that was to try and steal a red buff that he died for.
They can still try and go for the Shen play on top side, but it gets harder and harder because Shen will eventually get a bit tankier for himself, and Roccat, they read the situation very well. They spotted Maxwell on that ward early. They reacted to the red buff, got themselves a big lead for their mid laner, and the scaling comp is doing its job. It's scaling.
Yep. Fari just trying to chunk down Prophet's health bar, but it's nothing doing right now. For all of the early tools that Misfits have, we just haven't seen anything come together here. And there's the lane swap. Hansam and Mickey, they're going to try and rush down a tower.
Slightly ahead on the move here. As you guys can see in the minimap, Rocket's bottom lane are just leaving base just about now. Meaning, of course, the Misfits get a small advantage when it comes to getting the early push into potentially a Rift Herald or some damage on top lane turret. But, of course, there's a Tahm Kench ulti on the side of Roccat. Can always react with that to catch up if you are behind.
And now if this game does start going later and later without Misfits building up a serious lead, like realistically, who do we have to look at to really step up? I feel like Hans Sama is like almost the only option.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily just instantly lost for Misfits in the late game. They just don't have anyone who can really tank damage. So their team fights will have to be super explosive, a lot of focus on like catching out one member of Roccat without the Tahm Kench being nearby who can just devour them. So it's not like you can't win if the enemy team especially split up. It just gets so much harder to do because Roccat can group as 5 on a Baron, have Tahm Kench ulti to save whoever Camille decides to jump, and then deny that person from dying. And as you said in Champions League, Pyro, they have 3 tanks in front of 2 carries, and Misfits have 5 squishy champions.
Yeah, they definitely went all in more on the damage dealing, the mobility aspect. They can certainly do it, but with so many defensive tools on the Roccat side, they'll have to play those fights almost perfectly, and they just haven't been able to find anything this game. Okay, bot laner's going to find each other. HiQ hopping that wall. Talking about being safe as well. You know, we wanted to see hyper carrying coming out of HiQ this game, maybe the Jinx or something like that, but this Ezreal is also never going to die, because quite apart from the Tahm Kench, it's Blue Ezreal. He can cut you forever.
He's going to deal a lot of damage against these squishy targets, so he's going to be fine as long as he doesn't get one shot. That's also why we get Iceborne Gauntlet build. It's all about survive initial engage from Mickey and Alphari together, and then Roccat will win the fights eventually. Maxlor is once again around the mid lane.
All right, the 2v2 continues on a different front, but looks like Roccat looking to chase on Maxlor. Instead, they actually just clear out a couple of wards just to maintain control of that river. 15 minutes in, still no clear winner in these lanes just yet.
No, but Blank, with him taking over mid lane, he stops Taliyah from being able to roam. That means the effectiveness of Taliyah suddenly goes down a lot. We're not seeing any plays where Misfits are pushing mid, diving bot lane, in this case against the Shen, and getting Alphari ahead. We're just seeing Blank instant kill the wave mid, and then he can react and he can move. Gives all the control to Roccat right now, because no one from Misfits seems ready to pull off a play. If they can't attack the Shen, Shen can always ult to the other side and assist whoever's getting attacked. So it's really hard for Misfits to be proactive right now, because Blank is winning mid.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty right now. I honestly want to see if they can even stop some of these objectives from going down. Mickey's getting chased out because 4 members of Roccat are doing the Rift Joke. So they're not only controlling the map, they're controlling the objectives, and it's the scaling team comp.
This is where Rocket's comp is strong, when they're together. And they have all the defensive tools and the tanks. Misfits can't pick them off. I want to see if Maxlor can assist Senkooks in pushing out mid, so they can actually move together. But it's hard, because Blank kills the wave in 2 seconds, and if you try and gank Blank, Shen ults.
Yeah, and that is definitely not what you want. Not to mention the Tahm Kench can always come to the rescue as well. Norskaren with semi-global on his Abyssal Voyage. Misfits just left to pick up the pieces at this point. No towers have fallen in this game. With only the 2 kills, it's actually been relatively quiet affair, but that's exactly what Roccat want. They can just keep scaling up.
Freddy's a happy man at the moment.
Oh yeah, everything's going according to plan.
Yep. Definitely true. Norskaren and HiQ just want to defend the turret for as long as possible. Can just ult into it. Kill the wave. Or not.
Yeah.
Norskaren actually
that is some very polite applause for the ward killing.
Respectful.
It's not just, it was like excitedly respectful. Oh, we got one.
I mean, I guess Misfits got something in this game. They killed the ward.
Well, it does give you some gold. It adds up, man. You got to save that money. Get yourself those items. Speaking of, Trinity Force now completed on Alphari. I feel like they just haven't done nearly enough, though. They will be able to fell this first turret, but that is all Misfits have gotten.
This game is all on Alphari at the moment, it feels like.
See if they can make something else happen. Norskaren gets caught up in the Rakan knockup, but that's a Tahm Kench.
Well, that's one thing worth talking about, is the impact of Alphari. Last time I saw him play Camille, he hard carried team fights. This is a team who very clearly does not want him to just play tanks every game like other top laners. They want him on carries. He played Vladimir last week as well. He gets Camille in this one. He's winning his lane as he should. He got his turret now for his team. So this seems to be just all on Alphari, completely taking over that side lane and then being someone who can actually one-shot in team fights.
You know what's going to help him be able to take over on that side lane, Deficio? The Mountain Drake the Misfits just picked up to match the one of Roccat. Unfortunately, they're going to lose a tower in the mid thanks to Shelly.
His mid lane, man. Roccat winning mid so hard after those early plays. It's just so huge for them to shut down a pick comp. It's insane. They're now actually going for a top lane play, maybe.
Uh-oh, Hans Sama and Mickey got to be careful. They know. They're out of there. They're not going to defend this tower.
Can they even do it? Because Shen can hold in. No. Have to just give it up for now. A lot of damage coming from Rockat's side.
Oh man, this pick comp is going to just start falling farther behind now. Can they turn before the damage finishes? EQ sends one more pot shot at the tower. It's not going to fall just yet, but it's only a few love taps away from dropping. Misfits are getting pushed back, further and further.
It's only a Forest lane where they're able to get any sort of pressure at the moment. While Mickey and Hansama can push, can't really hit the turret because they know there's a Channel that could just arrive, and then suddenly they get ganked and die. So everyone on the side of Misfits except for the top lane are forced to play passive.
Man, Roccat so happy with the way this game is going right now. They may not even need to scale. The Azir is just stacking things up. On top of the Nashor's Tooth, already has the Haunting guys, Blasting Wand, Tier 2 boots. I mean, Zengus just doesn't have the damage to compare.
No, and he will probably never get the damage to compare to the Azir in team fights. That's kind of the thing with Talia. You can't utilize her ulti. She obviously doesn't offer the same as other mid lanes. That being said, she can be good against tanks because, like, in late game team fights, her knockback into the ROCs, into Q spam, like, it is decent burst damage even against tanks if you can then single them out. So there is, once again, enough damage on the side of Misfits to kill a tank. It's just, can you kill the tank fast enough? Because Roccat is going to kill one of your squishy targets in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's always the danger. And we just haven't seen a lot of those ultimates getting used either. Misfits haven't really found themselves those opportunities to get the picks. That's why they got 0 kills at 20 minutes into the game. We haven't seen the ultimatums. We haven't seen the Weaver's Wall coming out. So they do have the tools, but they haven't found an opportunity to use them.
That's actually true. We have seen 0 Talia ultis in this game. But now.
Okay, Mickey's going to get caught. He battle dances back, but Shen has arrived on top of Memento, flashing forward. Prophet still trying to find the damage. Double charm there with the quickness, but Mickey X is already a little bit low, and he's going to fall. Norscarin licks him. Senkux and Maxlor trying to walk away. Here comes the Abyssal Voyage. That's the fun Tom catch we wanted to see. Memento takes down Senkux.
They can't do anything in the 5-on-5s. They don't have the damage to kill the tanks. They don't have the tankiness to stay alive against the carries. That's early Baron being started by Roccat.
20-minute Baron. They've got themselves a Mountain Dragon, and there's nobody there to contend right now. Roccat have everything. This game is in the palm of their hand.
Reminder, last time Roccat played Misfits, as I said before, they stomped Misfits.
Almost perfect game. We're on track for the same right now, with Misfits only picking up 1 tower and 1 dragon.
This might be another stomp in favor of Roccat.
Oh man, this is going to feel so bad for Misfits and Misfits fans to drop another game to go 0-2 in the head-to-head against Roccat.
We actually looked at this coming into it, and because of their head-to-head records, as we talked about earlier here, it felt like if Misfits lost to Roccat, they were almost done. Just because if they end on 8 wins, so if they win tomorrow, they're most likely sitting next to a team where they're 0-2 against them, and then it's it's Misfits who gets knocked out of playoffs. They need to then hope for like 3-way or 4-way ties where that can get nullified.
We saw the chances of that happen.
Yeah, and the chance of that happening are very low compared to just the 1-way tie, and Misfits will most likely lose that, unless it's against someone like Schalke where they're 1-on-1.
But it seems to tie back to the same thing that we've been criticizing Misfits for most of this split, and that is trying to execute, maybe not necessarily super complicated comps, but very significantly single win condition type of comp.
Oh yeah, I mean, this comp, as we said before, is way harder than the one from Rockat's side. This is a good team fight set up by Roccat. Blank is holding off 2 members on one side, and then all the tanks in the front. You can't kill them, and HQ will eventually take you down. Nice little play from
I like this. Norscan gets one for himself, though, at the end of the day. But this is what is so good about Roccat, is this team as 5. They know how to fight. This is why we see them drafting these comps. And this is why it's so exciting to see these guys that definitely weren't household names stepping up.
Bot lane turret will go down as well, Pyre.
Yep.
Blank is on it.
So 4 kills, soon to be 4 towers. The Azir just keeps on packing away, and at this point, Misfits just going to find themselves running out of towers very quickly. The options are also running out.
As long as they don't get caught out randomly in a side lane with everything on cooldown, then yeah, everything is in Rockat's favor. Shen ult is up in a few seconds. Now Scaren's ult is ready with the time Kenshi sitting mid lane. He can just come down bot lane if Blank gets ganked. The amount of safety allows Roccat to play aggressive against a composition that normally could actually try and pick you off with Kha'Zix, Talia, Camille. But when you lose that early game around the mid lane so hard due to your invade onto red buff completely backfiring, I don't think they actually were ready for Shen ult to show up, because Alfari couldn't move in time to match Shinola, of course, because that's just the instant TP over. And it probably just surprised them a lot. And them dying at that red buff, and then the return gang from Memento after, that's what basically got Roccat ahead in this game.
Oh, yeah. And Roccat just have been a team that have been able to surprise consistently. And that's why it's so impressive to watch them do it. Not just with their rosters, but with the way that they play the game. You remember some pretty legendary games this split where they, even the ones they didn't lose, like against Vitality, where they were holding out for so long and after being so far behind. This team has so much versatility in what they can actually do, but they're right in their comfort zone. They were given the tools to easily succeed, and then they got ahead in the early game.
And they've definitely won most of the games this split playing like more late game focused comps.
Oh, yeah.
Early on, that was kind of the meta. They were successful with it. They tried to change it and play these like split push comps with Prophet and Blank. While they did okay with them, they could never finish the game, so they never got enough wins with it, and then they swapped back to the late game style. And that's just been the way for them to pick up most of their wins, and it's the way they're picking up wins here. Not by going to the late game, but by just playing comfort picks for especially Blank and mid. And we gotta say, Memento, we criticized his Sejuani in the pick and ban phase, but he's had a good game on it.
Yeah, I mean, win-loss isn't everything, right? He's looking like he might be stacking up that second one, but
it's not been great in the past.
Memento has definitely had better performance, but it's not even his mechanics that I think a lot of people really praise this guy for. It's the fact that he's the leader of this squad. He's come in after limited runs in the LCS in the past, not a whole lot of success, even when there was hype around this guy.
True.
And he kind of changed as a player, like he's been very vocal about how he wants to be the guy that leads the team to victory. He doesn't need to be the superstar as long as he's propping everyone up. If
you want to learn more about Memento, we actually did a feature on him specifically where we followed him on a game day early in the split. So you got to find it on YouTube or eu.lolesports.com. You should be able to find it in there as well. And kind of showed how important he is, like as the captain on this team. And he's also the guy just taking all the blame if they lose. He's like, yep, no matter what happened, if we lose, I take the blame.
He's used to that. He's a jungler.
That's true. Yeah, he's been groomed in solo queue.
It's okay. He's got 3 kills now. He's 100% kill participation.
He's definitely the main reason they're winning. So
he's also going to be really hard to kill.
I would say almost impossible.
Randuin's home. And even if he ends up getting low, I mean, that's why they got Prophet on the Shen, who's also kind of changed a little bit, right? It used to be kind of give him Gnar and he'd just go, but he started to find a little consistency with some different choices, especially with the Gnar nerfs that came in. And it kind of fits right into the style that they want to play.
With Blank almost getting his 3rd item by the time the Sencooks have just completed 2. And we get to see what happens when Roccat win early game around mid with Blank. And this is one of the games where he starts taking over together with Memento and he becomes the big carry of the team. So this is exactly what they want. And at the moment, Roccat look like one of the favorites of these middle-of-the-pack teams to make playoffs, especially if they beat Misfits here, which they should be able to. 9,000 gold lead, great scaling. It should be impossible for Roccat to lose.
And they have been so close, so many times, with so many different rosters to making the playoffs. Remember what we talked about at the start of the game. Roccat have not been able to make the playoffs since the summer of 2015. This is what their fans have been waiting for. If they're able to make it in off the back of performances like this where they just shut out opposition, there is a lot of hope for this Roccat team. Now Blank is going to get caught out, unfortunately. As soon as we praise him, that looks like the cast occurs right there. Blank's going to fall, and there's the pick comp. That's the start of something for Misfits. What can they do with it, though?
Farm.
All right. Good answer.
Blank is going to, be back by the time Baron is spawned. Maybe Misfits, if they stand there the moment it's actually alive, they can try and rush it down, but it's going to be tough with 4 members of Roccat and still a very large gold lead around it. So Misfits get a kill. Blank and the rest of Roccat were all recalling and a little bit too greedy.
Don't open your shot when you're standing in a brush.
Yeah, don't recall there either.
Yeah, well, it's one mistake from Roccat, but otherwise, really hard to criticize what they've been doing this game. Misfits, however, have regained control of the Baron Pit.
That's the thing. If they actually stand there the moment it spawns and started and try and get a 4v5 team fight, that could be a way back for Misfits, but it's still so hard against these tanks.
And there's no teleport. Remember, Blank, we talked about how he's going to be the primary damage dealer here.
No, Scarin is just sitting and waiting for him, and he's going to taxi him out with the Tom Cash.
Oh, okay, never mind. He's fine.
And they lost nothing.
Man, having globals is definitely anti-fun for your opponent.
It's really good against pick comps.
Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, there goes Misfits' control over the Baron Pit. It looks like they had it for just a moment, but Scarin able to bring Blank right back into the fray. The items starting to stack up. There's a huge amount of damage on that Azir. 3.5 items, including the Rabadon's death cap. That's going to hit like a truck.
Man. Compare the mid laners and items. Insane. Blank at the moment, sitting on 500 AP, and Senkuk's on his side 250, so double the amount in the Azir.
Yeah, those Azir nerfs not really hurting too much in the late game, and they're two-manning this. Here he goes! He can't quite get it in time. Memento winning the smite fight. Let's see if Maxlor can get out before he's gonna fall with Prophet coming in, and the Sand Soldiers there. They just exhaust him for the hell of it and take him down.
That was probably the last hope for Misfits. 2-level advantage for Memento. He gets the Baron for his team. And now it's 4v5, Baron buff, giant gold lead. Roccat, they're pushing straight into the base.
Looking to close this one and put a bow on this game. Misfits trying for the early. It all backfired at the red pit. And Roccat have been in control ever since. And they're just marching through. This Baron's still got 3 minutes to go, but I don't know if the Nexus of Misfits is going to last that long.
Top lane, next. Easy calling, or easy shot calling here from Memento's side. He's saying, guys, let's go kill some inhibs. They can't stop us. We're fed, they're not. We're better 5v5. Mickey pulling off some absolutely insane engage where he charms Noscaron and then gets a knock-up on the correct target so the Tahm Kench can't save them. And then Misfits got a one-shot that guy, but they don't really have the damage. I also think Noscaron should just, on his side, like, you can always just go cleanse on Tahm Kench, and then even if you get charmed, you don't care.
Yep. Oh, here we go, looking to end this one. Focusing on the top tower with a couple of minions. Misfits going to show 5, and that means they're going to back off because the Shen, Prophet, he's already going to go ahead and try to clean things up down on the bottom lane. Easy peasy wave clear once he has that Titanic Hydra. And this is the thing, Roccat, they don't have to try and force the issue right now. They can just keep it going. They've still got 2 minutes on the Baron buff ticking. There'll be another Mountain Dragon spawning in 10 seconds. Misfits are going to try to rush that, though. They definitely want to be able to have the damage to the objectives.
We'll be starting it while Roccat are just grabbing red buff and so on.
Oh, they're going to wait in the brush.
Oh, actually, they're setting up a trap, maybe, yeah? They're looking for, like, comeback mechanics where they do the unexpected. Mickey is spotted now near the Drake.
Oh, my.
Roccat should know that they're all going to be around.
Nah, they did not want to pull this one off. True Shot Barrage is going to hit onto 4. Maxlor still in the pit. And unfortunately, that setup, they get cold feet. It's going to give over the Dragon to Roccat. Misfits. This is just not their game. So with Roccat picking up the second Mountain Dragon.
Maxlor, what is he trying to do here?
This brush, but I mean, those numbers don't add up. He is 1v3, 4.
No Shen ult, at least, for him.
Okay, hang on a second.
Let's see, can Afar TP anywhere behind him? There's no wards, so that's going to be a no. Maxlor is still sitting there, hoping someone shows up on their own.
All right.
He's moving in now. We might have to look at the standings after, because this could be the last fight for Misfits.
Could very well indeed. Senkuk's Hansama trying to hold the front line, but it looks like everything's falling to pieces here. It will be all on Secret Agent Maxlor to try and get that pick off onto Blank, but the tower's already going to fall, and Mickey X, he tries to go in, but he can't find the damage. Maxlor going to get revealed. A Memento on the front, taking down Senkuk's. The Emperor's Divide is not going to catch on. But Memento, Maxlor, he's just getting forced back right now by Noscaron. It was pretty easy for Roccat to just knock down that inhib.
Yeah, they didn't even get the Shen ult yet. Roccat like, that's fine, we don't care. Like, we want to play 5-on-5.
This is the team fighting composition. Misfits with the pick, we're not able to find it. And now, Roccat are knocking on their front door. Hansama nearly gets deleted. The Weaver's Wall comes out, but it's not going to do much but temporarily divide Roccat. And with the towers, the inhibitors, the Nexus in their sights, there is nothing that Misfits seem to be able to do but try and hold off desperately. One last effort is all they're going to get. A double knockup for Mickey X. He looks to go in, and this might be the wombo of a combo they needed. Blank is going to fall. No, he's not. Gets saved by Prophet, and they just don't have enough damage in the tank. Roccat find the team fight they needed. That's a double kill. That's a triple kill. That's going to be the ace, and that is going to be it. As the final towers falls, Senkuk's looks on because Roccat are blasting off to victory.
Such a big win for Roccat. The second time they stomp Misfits 2-0 head-to-head. The biggest win possible for this team this late in the split, and it puts them in such a good spot when it comes to playoffs.
Just utterly impressive. They get the 2-0 head-to-head over Misfits Gaming. On top of that, They're pretty much 1-1 with just about everybody else to Fischio.
It's looking great for Roccat now when it comes to securing playoff. Reminder, they play H2K tomorrow. Win that game, Roccat for sure will be in playoffs. They will have picked up 9 wins for themselves. Lose that game and they still have a chance through a potential tiebreaker.
That sounds great to me right now. So Roccat, they have to be elated. Remember, this team was not getting anybody excited before the split started. There were players that people had heard of, they'd seen, but not very much. People were wondering, like, what are they going to do? But once again, the talent factory cranks out these incredible players.
It's true. Prophet and Hikyu coming from NIP, losing almost every single game.
Memento having his chance briefly in the LCS, coming back into it, becoming a leader. Looks like we'll be hearing from him in just a few moments, but what an incredible run that this Roccat team has had.
And what a good game. It's all about winning the mid lane in this one. That first invade from Misfits backfired so hard. They were spotted moving in there. We had the Shen ult come in before Alfari could move down, and suddenly Senkux dies. Both summoners blown. He dies in his mid lane right after because Memento can just flash on him. So really not a whole lot he could have done there after he already lost the summoners. And the moment they lose the mid lane with this like really, proactive pick comp, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't go and kill the Shen. They couldn't stop Hikyu from farming, and Blank just took over the lane. Him and Memento together, they were the big carries in this game for Roccat.
Yeah, have to give them so much credit, and just playing to those win conditions and giving themselves a couple of options, because they could do it in the late game, they could do it in the early and in the mid as well.
By outplaying Misfits,
because they just outplayed them.
Exactly.
Misfits definitely the troubles continue for this team because they have one win condition and they just couldn't execute it.
And the saddest thing is, like, Misfits is the kind of team where you feel like in a best of 5, they could do very well.
Oh, we've seen them shine in best of 5.
Exactly, we saw that last year, and they're kind of known for being very good at prepping. But in best of 1s, so many things can happen, and it's not favoring this team. They make too many mistakes early to mid-game often, and they get punished for it because they run these compositions that can't really get back in games, always on a timer, always a bit harder to execute than the other team's draft. And then when you fail the execution, you, of course, get stumped.
Yeah, but the execution was incredible from the Roccat side. Now, some more insight on their win. Let's check in with Law and their jungler.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Indeed, I'm here with Memento after their fantastic win against Misfits. Thank you very much for joining me. You seem really in control with your Sejuani today, even though you've been unsuccessful on the pick for the whole split. What was different today?
I mean, my Sejuani actually has a 16% win rate, so a lot of teams don't respect it. But I think the difference, I mean, against Fnatic, my Sejuani wasn't really... We couldn't really do anything. We got pretty rolled over. And I think just our style is more, when I play aggressive junglers, we work out a lot better. But now we can actually play all different styles, so it's a lot nicer, and I can play the tank jungler or a carry jungler. It doesn't really matter at this point.
Do you feel like you found your style already as a team by now?
I don't think any team should have like a certain style, but I think you should be always flexible to be able to play 1-3-1 or 5v5 or whatever kind of team comp. And I think that's the kind of thing we've been working on the entire split. We don't want just one style. We want to be able to play any sort of style.
Yeah, that's a good way to see the game. Now you're
No worries.
almost certain to go to playoff. At least your chances are higher than ever. How are you feeling about this?
I mean, I'm obviously feeling really awesome because I think it's the first time, not the first time, but I'm actually really excited about playing the LCS because it's just so close right now, and it actually feels every game matters, and it's just such a beautiful feeling to play like in this season.
And who do you think will make it as well to playoff?
Us and...
Besides you guys, obviously.
Right. I mean, let's be real here, guys. Come on.
Oh, that's hard.
No, I'm just joking. I think anyone can make it. Schalke can still make it. No, joking. HTK can't. But the rest can, I think.
Okay, well...
I think every team is like equal. There's no one who can't beat anyone.
We'll see about that. And on that matter, let's send it to Medic and the playoffs checkup.
Thank you very much, Law. I am here once again for our playoff checkup. And we've had 2 games today, and you might think that would mean that someone was locked in, but sadly, still only Fnatic sitting up in the first spot, and Splice locked in for playoffs, but not locked into that second spot yet. As you can see, G2 Esports and Vitality are still trying to grasp their way up towards that second spot, and the bye that takes them straight to Copenhagen. So, what do our first 2 games actually mean if they haven't locked anyone in for playoffs? Well, Misfits fall down towards the bottom of the table, and Roccat are looking very good in that 5th spot at 8 and 9. The next 3 games, though, are incredibly exciting for us, especially this Splice versus Vitality matchup that comes up right after this. You're looking at this because if Splice win, they are that much closer to that second spot, and if Vitality win, they actually lock themselves that playoff bye for them, for the team. G2 later on as well have a chance to play for a playoff bye, but you have to remember that Giants and Unicorns are looking for that spot at the bottom of the table. If they can get that 6th place spot, they are definitely in contention throughout the rest of playoffs. Who is left to play for the rest of the day? Let's have a look at exactly how it matches up on our table, because if you actually look at it, a lot of our top teams have yet to play today, and there's an opportunity for teams like Giants and like the Unicorns of Love to actually start climbing up the table a little bit more. Tomorrow we have a middle-of-the-pack battle, and with teams like Misfits dropping games and having a weak head-to-head, every win for teams around them is incredibly important. It's very difficult, actually, for Misfits now to make it to that playoff spot, especially considering that they are playing up against Unicorns of Love tomorrow, who've been playing relatively well recently. We'll have to see how they do. We'll have to see how that Splice and Vitality match plays up next. But right before that, we're going to have a look at just why tickets are on sale already for Copenhagen, 7th and 8th of April. Make sure you grab your tickets now if you want to catch all of our best teams in action.
Looks like Roccat are the ones who want to take the fight. Sencooks is isolated from the team. That's first blood. Double charm there with the quickness, but Mickey X is already a little bit low, and he's going to fall. Norscarin licks him. The late game, and they're 2-manning this. Here he goes! He can't quite.